Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our event today. We are recording our meeting now. Today we'll be exploring the topic of communism and its present-day adaptations in the West, including America. My name is Wenyaun Wu, and I'm the Executive Director at the Californians for Equal Rights Foundation. My colleague, Mr. Frank Chu, the president of CFER, is also here in attendance. We're honored today to be joined by all of you, many of whom are longtime CFER friends. In the coming weeks and months, CFER will be hosting a series of educational programs aimed at building awareness on issues related to our cause and mission, including the ideological problems and challenges we face today. Our programs are especially focused on helping high school students understand these issues. While everyone is welcome, but if you have high school students at home or know someone in your circles, please stay tuned and help us spread the word. Joining us this morning to speak are two gentlemen from the Settlement Project. Mr. Jack Ashworth was a high school teacher with the Los Angeles Unified School District for 20 years and for 15 years as a director of Relationship Intelligence Character Ed Program. He is married and has 4 children. In just a minute, Mr. Ashworth will take over to introduce our other speaker, Dr. Frank Kaufmann, who is the president of the Settlement Project. The Settlement Project envisions a world in which all people live freely and in peace, served by governments that preserve and protect inalienable and irrevocable God-given rights. The group promotes individual freedom and champions efforts to counter and replace the destructive forces of materialism, including Marxism and derivative philosophies and ideologies. This work is carried out through education and advocacy, targeting educational institutions, politics, media, big tech, and communist regimes. Mr. Jack Ashworth, I will please have you take over and speak on a few words on the Settlement Project and introduce Dr. Kaufmann.
Okay, well, welcome everyone, and we're really excited that CFER's students are on this webinar today. One of our goals as Settlement Project is to bring diverse people together, distinguished people who care about the values of America and are willing to work together to renew our country. So we really, I think, have a very diverse group, which is really great. I'd like to introduce our speaker and get us started. So today we have Dr. Frank Kaufmann. He is the founder of Settlement Project, so we're very grateful to have him on. And Dr. Kaufmann has worked in the area of international relations and peace mediation for more than 40 years. He received a doctorate from Vanderbilt University in Christian thought. He's also the editor of the New World Encyclopedia. He also has authored several books, including one that he'll be covering a lot of the content today, a book that will be available for anyone, which is called WICC Ideology, Critique and Counterproposal. So if anyone wants to recontact Dr. Wu or myself, that book can be sent to you without cost. So today, we're happy to have Dr. Frank with us. He is a parent of 3 children and 2 grandchildren, and we are very honored. For all of you high school students, I know that this is going to be a little bit of a challenge. This will be an AP class, but I'm sure if you're a CFER student, you're up to the task. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Kaufmann right now. Thank you, Dr. Kaufmann.
Thanks very much, Jack. I'd like to express my gratitude to the CFER leadership, to Dr. Wu and Frank Chu. I've had the good fortune to meet and spend time with the CFER leadership during our conferences and meetings in California. And so we're really grateful that you've set this up. We're really grateful that you have us with you. Part of the settlement project original inspiration was the recognition that there were two different forms of leftist attempt to take down the United States as a stable democracy. Those come from the CCP on the Pacific Rim, and they come from post-Stalinist communist, post-Stalinist Marxism. It's various forms that they tried to reinvigorate or restore or refresh Marxism after the world was able to see how horrible it can become. We've labeled that new philosophical expression wokeism. But I believe that as I read the materials in preparation for this conference, I see that there was an especial interest in the idea, in the investigating the problems of communism and a little bit on the history of communism. So because of that, I organized my presentation to deal especially with the problem of Marxism, and only towards the end do I introduce the Atlantic side or European philosophical side ideology of wokeism, which was and is especially effective here in the United States. We've suffered a great deal under its influence. So I want to protect everyone's time, and so I'm just going to jump right into my presentation. And hopefully we can leave time for questions, or however the organizers want to run affairs throughout the morning. So I'm just going to go straight into this presentation for everyone. Okay, I believe that's visible presently. Can I? Yeah, I see some people nodding. All right.
Yeah.
So here we are. This was the material sent out to invite people to the conference, and you see that it's a great focus or emphasis on communism, both in the title of the presentation as well as in the topics listed. And so it's for this reason that although the settlement project has had a very strong and intense emphasis on dissecting, dismantling wokeism and offering a sound counterproposal to the problematic ideals, not ideals, the problematic, I don't know what you call them, perversities of wokeism. Let us today take a little more focus on communism, which is a very valid emphasis, especially because the CCP, which pursues its hegemonic, which means try to take over the world, hegemonic activities under the explicit and express name of communism and Marxism. Of course, even it's in the name, the Chinese Communist Party, which is very active, very aggressive in every corner of the world. So let's look at communism here. I want to start out with a simple question, because we're all here in America, and America is one of the important centers for withstanding any sort of ideological, political, or military force which tries to bring dystopia, tries to bring harm and ugliness and suffering and misery to the world. America always has to be a central target for any such agenda because of its strength, the depth of its democratic traditions, and so forth. So a lot of people internationally and of different ethnicities and different cultures and different national origins, they wonder, why do we have to be so focused on America? And so I begin with that question: is America great, in fact, as a nation? Everyone knows it does wrong. It has done a lot of wrong, both domestically. There are bad actors, also internationally. So it, and I come to the main conclusion of this particular slide. Everyone believes their own country is great. And this is a good thing about human beings. It's good to love your ethnicity, your national origins, your country. So if America is always kind of talking about itself and America first, fortunately, President Trump spoke at the United Nations shortly after his first election and said, every country should be that country first. England first, China first, Japan first. It's the natural way to organize one's political and cultural contribution to the world. So the fact that we'll see so much of America today and often in hearing the withstanding of communism or wokeism is not to have a myopic or parochial nationalism, that thinking only my country is great, but Brazil is, or only America is beautiful, but Brazil is not beautiful, or Canada is not beautiful. It's not the purpose or claim. It's essentially in the way of destructive ideologies, in the way of what we will look at to be a very horrible future for humankind. So America comes under constant attack. So if America is great at all, is it its beauty? Possibly. Its wealth? Yes. Importantly, its people? You could be the judge of that. There's some good ones, some bad ones. But what I want to concentrate on today is a single thing. There's only one thing that I want to consider American for the purpose and sake of this presentation. The American founders defined being human in a unique way historically. This is what America has to offer, what it has particularly invested in, what it is quite mature in, and what it has tried to work through politically, economically, culturally, and so forth. The definition of what it means to be human. It's in the founding documents of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. The founders say that being human means actually very few things. One, that we are free, that this is given by God. It's not given by any other human being. Simply by dint of being born, you are free. No one may hold authority over you without your consent. It's a definition of being human. Some people might say human beings are people with opposing thumbs, or develop language, or have tools, or bury their dead. This is not what was focused on. The founders said one thing: if you are born human, you are absolutely free. No one has authority over your personal sovereignty. Secondly, and this is given by God, it's not given by anyone or anything. It happens by being born. The second thing, you are equal. There is no one more valuable than you, period. The person could be a billionaire, could be a king, could be, there's a picture of Michelangelo's study of the human being. It could be Michelangelo himself. No one is more valuable than any other person. This equality is manifest in value and in equality under the law. And the final thing is that every human being has inalienable rights guaranteed by God. Once again, the rights are not given us by anyone. We don't earn them. There's not some people that deserve them and some people don't. By being born human, your sovereignty is absolute. Your only author, your only, call it oppressor if you want to be funny, is your conscience, period, the end. And your concern for the common welfare of the community, of your family, of your neighborhood. That's the only constraints. You bring them on to ourselves. No one is better than me. No one is worse than me. We don't live up to this all the time, but these are what the founders defined as being human. Born free, created free by God, born equal, born equally valuable to everybody else, and born with the guarantee that if I steal an apple, and if the President of the United States steals an apple, we should both do the same jail time. We should both have the opportunity to repent, to offer our service to our country, and to be given a new start after having served our time. Unless 51 intelligence agents says that the president didn't steal the apple, then maybe I'll do the jail time and he won't. But the ideal of America is our equality. The inalienable rights that are identified by the founders, once again, they are not granted us by our government. They're not even granted us by the Constitution. We have them because we are human. They come from God and from no one else and nothing else. Some of these rights, some of the most important ones, of course, are in the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment to the Constitution: freedom of religion, freedom of conscience. No one can impose upon us what we believe and how we practice our faith. It's a right given by God. If someone tries to prevent you or coerce you or imprison you, they are in violation not only of the US Constitution, they're in violation of the natural order of things, of God himself, herself. Freedom of speech. There's a big censorship movement that comes from the left. We'll see a lot of things from the left that are hostile or contrary to what the founders identify as absolute rights: freedom to assemble, freedom of the press, and freedom to bear arms. All of these are indispensable. They're not negotiable. They're there for a reason. The founders were inspired that these would be the necessary foundations of a prosperous and harmonious society. This is why there's the odd curiosity that anyone from anywhere, if they've gone through the process of naturalization, can look you in the eye and say in an accent that you might not even be able to understand what they're saying. Say, I am an American, America is great. So what I've tried to do here is separate off, well, why don't you say France is great? Why don't you say Italy is great? They cook better than you guys. It's what I wanted to point out here is there's only one thing that is unique to America, and that is those three qualities: inalienable rights, absolute freedom, and absolute equality. That's what makes an American, and that's what makes America. And that's worthy of calling great, without disturbing or harming or interfering with anybody else's very proper and delightful preference or love of their own country, their own ethnicity, their own natural origins. Okay, so I've just gone through a definition of being human that American founders say is connected to the infinite, the almighty, to God. There is a communist or Marxist definition of being human. That is, it is related to the fact that what's called cosmology or metaphysics, that the view of Marxism and communism is that all of reality is matter. Matter. This is called materialism. I'm sure some people are familiar with the term. This means that if everything is matter, if all of reality is matter, then value is related to matter. Being human must be primarily related to matter. It's a necessity of what you call the metaphysics or cosmology or philosophy of Marxism and communism. So what are then the definition of being human according to communism and Marxism? Since we have to be related to matter, what's known in Marxism as the labor theory of value reads in this way. The value of a commodity is determined by the amount of labor required to produce it. If you take coal out of the ground or a raw diamond out of the ground, the amount of labor you put into it, this is what determines its value. This is the Marxist theory of where value lies, and it's always related to matter. So the way that human beings can attain any value whatsoever, or the very definition of what we are, the whole of what we are, is our laborers. Our value is derived from the quantity of labor. Human labor is the source of economic value, and since all of reality is nothing but matter, the only thing that exists is economic value. Yes, communist countries have culture, if you want to call it that, but it's always in the service of the celebration of labor. The ideal of communism was the dictatorship of the proletariat. The second important thing to understand about the nature of communism and Marxism is its inherent dynamic. So what I first described was that reality is matter, but how does it sustain itself, and how do things evolve and progress, including human society? Everything sustains itself and evolves and progresses according to the dialectic. It is a dynamic of maintaining and progressing. Here's how to understand that. The inherent dynamic of conflict or struggle in Marxist dialectics is characterized by contradiction and transformation. Opposing forces, many of you may have seen this in your lives, thesis and antithesis, clash, leading to a new synthesis through the process of conflict and resolution. So the way things are maintained is that something comes against me. Conflict is the fundamental defining force of all of reality. So we have matter, which determines value. It requires human beings to labor, and our value is assessed and attained by our quantity of labor. And the other aspect of reality is that it is characterized by conflict, opposition, struggle. This is a view of reality. It's not a political strategy. It's how reality is understood. So here's the simple summary of Marxism then, based on what I've just explained. All of existence, including being human, is defined by conflict, struggle, and labor. I write, this is not an anti-communist view. This is simply the writing of Marx himself. This ideology lies at the basis of all Marxist societies, including, and now most especially, China. Conflict, struggle, and the human being is nothing more than labor. President Xi is open and direct and plain and clear and uncomplicated about his posture and about his understanding of what he is doing to China and the Chinese people. This is his quote, his words. The foundation of China's political economy can only be a Marxist political economy and not based on other economic theories. It's plain and clear. What President Xi is saying is that that under my authority, the people of China are required to understand that life is constituted by the labor theory of value, labor, and it proceeds on the dynamic of conflict and struggle. This is not somebody inventing things to make you dislike communism. It's the writing of the thinkers and advocates themselves. I'm sure you can go to plenty of lectures and hear about all the terrible things China does, all the terrible things the communists in America do. And we should go to those lectures. We should be at those lectures 24 hours a day. We should see every atrocity. But this lecture is not to whip up a kind of emotions to hate this ideology, which should be hated. It's to simply say in their own words, clearly what in fact it is, and how human beings are understood and how societies function based on this basic and fundamental difference. Here is a comparison of the two definitions of being human that I just explained. Marxism, the basis of reality is matter. Reality is sustained, maintained, and determined by conflict and struggle. Being human is a laborer. All of human experience is class struggle. In free democratic societies, this is the definition of all of reality and of being human. The basis of reality is a form of benevolent design and intention. Most people call it God, or you can call it any other name. The assumption is that reality reflects a desire for kindness, goodness, love, the welfare of those who of the creatures. That's why the American founders said that the best idea God could possibly come up with when creating humans is to make us free, make us equal, and give us rights that no one can take away. The dynamic of reality under free democratic societies, or at least the ideal, is harmony and selfless care for others. That's how those societies prosper. Being human means having freedom, equality, and inalienable rights. Without ever going into the hours and volumes of good and legitimate presentations and TikToks and Instagrams and war room episodes of learning of every single violation of human decency and dignity that happens by communism. One of the things you can simply do is ask any friend, or hopefully anybody that has a little bit of reasonableness, how would you like to be understood? Which of the two ideas about life and society and who and what you are as a creature is preferable, is more attractive? I think just in the writing of the thinkers themselves, they've already defined themselves out. And what happens when you have, like if you look at the left column there, the Marxist ontology means doctrine of being. If you look at Marxist ontology, of course it manifests exactly as it does. There's no other way. You start with its core, its seed, and it grows into the tree that it inevitably does. And that's why every Marxist society is one of totalitarian oppression, suffering, like whimsical imprisonment, disappearing beloved members of my family. It is the fair growth of its own original claims in its own writing and its own commitments. The next thing I want to point out as we reflect is that these two worldviews each have two ways of showing themselves. How do they look when other people, when they're not in charge? How do they look when they're in charge? So let's look first at when you're not in charge, when you wish you were in charge, when somebody is doing things to you that you don't agree with, how do you behave? Because free society people are also, some people might think the last 4 years prior to November 5th, things were being done to free society people that were in violation of God and God's laws. So let's see how each group acts when they're being ruled by others with whom they don't agree. Marxists, when out of power, seek power by means of violent revolution. It's inherent to the belief. It's not a strategy. It is the ideology. All leftists are violent when out of power. You can turn on the TV right now, and you will see beautiful American companies in flames. People trying to earn money to buy a school bag for their kids. Their places of work are being torched. It's a simple fact because the core ontology is conflict. That's how things progress. It's defined that way. It's the dialectic, as I write there on the bottom. It will always happen. It will always happen. It will always happen. Free society people, because their ontology or their basis or understanding of the basic nature of all of reality and of being human, seek to gain governing power by peaceful means through the democratic exercise of power. That's why a stable free society that's democratic has votes every 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. And if people weren't cheating, you'd simply count and you'd pass on the baton. That's how democratic free society people are meant to. This is a fact. Again, you can look at it. Again, you can look at it. You do not see violence of the nature, of the extreme nature that has taken over our country and the world again and again and again in recent years. Sheer violence that are informed by leftist strategists and ideologues. It happened with the Black Lives Matter thing. The country was in flames for months. It happened with the Palestinian thing. Just sheer destruction of property, of lives, of people. It never happens when those who understand their lives as governed by a benevolent originator, they don't behave like that when seeking power, or shouldn't, I should say. When governing, so that's when out of power. How do each side govern when in power? Marxists require totalitarian control of all populations they govern. The reason why they need totalitarian control is because they believe that human beings are responsible to create equality. Equality is meant to be created by state force. So you cannot have any freedom in a Marxist society because they want to implement material equality. They don't want anybody richer, anybody poorer. But the equality doesn't come from God. It's not equality of value. It's not equality under the law. It's equality of material access. So what is it? From each according to their abilities, to each according to their needs. It's a state-enforced equality, which requires complete and total totalitarianism. And you will always see every Marxist regime always ultimately end up in this state. Because it's human, there's nothing divine in it. All this does, it does not create equality. Everyone knows, who knows communism, it creates the exact opposite. It creates a totalitarian elite. Marxist governments, says my writing here, are the saddest, ugliest, most genocidal governments 100% of the time. Life under communism is one of fear, misery, despair, and militant, violent control of others. It contributes to leftist rule. Leftist rule contributes to elitism, corruption, and control of human beings. I can get into that more, but I'm kind of not racing through this, but all of this can be developed in ever deeper levels. When free society people, when governing, have certain rules, because each of us are sovereign and no one has the right to rule over us because we're created by God in that way. Free societies, the governors rule by our consent, the consent of the governed. We vote for them and we trust them to do their job. If they don't, our consent is removed, we vote them out, and we vote someone in who hopefully will understand my identity. My identity is free, equal, and with inalienable rights. The role of government is not to control and force outcomes like material equality, which is inane, honestly. That's the kindest adjective I can come up with. The role of government in free societies is to protect what God has created, simply. Free people, people who are treated equally under the law, people who are valued equally, and the God-given rights guaranteed every living human being. The government has no other role than to make sure that these things flourish. So just now, I covered 4 separate things: how Marxists behave out of power, how they behave in power. This is a consistent and natural outgrowth and expression of their ideological roots. It's not an accident. It's not because they're bad people. It's what the ideology produces. Free society people, how they behave when they're out of power, how they behave when they're in power. Again, it grows naturally from the basic assumptions or axioms. They're called in philosophy, these are called axioms. That's why the founders said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident means that you don't argue them. They're evident on their face. These are called axioms in philosophy. I'm near the end now of my presentation, and I'm going to touch only very briefly on the newly arising leftist totalitarian design and community, and we've labeled it wokeism. It's a radical thing for me to say, but it's my view that wokeism is more dangerous than communism. I can explain that in depth, perhaps in another occasion like this. I'll touch on it just very slightly. It comes out of Europe. It comes out of post-Stalinist Marxists in Europe, cultural Marxism, the Frankfurt School, and eventually the French language philosophers that removed the possibility of shared meaning in life. It's complicated, but in our book, we make it very simple, and anybody can command it. And as soon as you command it, you can see the evidences of wokeism wherever they appear. And you can be armed to withstand them and to overturn them in conversation. So that means there are 2 versions of leftist ideology working to destroy America presently. Communism from the CCP on the Pacific side, and everywhere, of course, it's a global world, and wokeism from the Atlantic European globalist side. And the reason why they attack America is because it's the main thing that's in the way. It's the land where one of the greatest armies ever, or maybe the greatest army ever, has the single purpose of making sure that no one interferes with the freedom of each and every single human individual. So the necessity, if you're a part of an ideological and political entity that requires totalitarianism to affect your ideological outcomes, of course you're going to do everything in your power to destroy a nation that is doing the exact opposite, has a mighty army, a mighty economy, and a mighty culture, all committed to doing the exact opposite, keeping people free. So I said that I have to explain these matters in more depth, but you can very easily get this and read it. You can read it in a morning or in an hour. It's very clear, it's very concise, and it's kind of like a pole vault. You go from vaguely knowing to deeply knowing. So we can come back, we can talk about this, but in the meantime, please grab it. It's very inexpensive, and as Jack said, write him, and we're just happy for you to have it. The reason why is every American needs to be well informed, well advised, well educated, and confident in knowing what's right and what's wrong, and how leftist ideologies they especially exploit the compassion of young people. That's their main. They exploit the compassion of young people and convert that into rage, self-righteousness, and eventually participation in violent activity. Very, very quickly, just very quickly, Marxism had only one enemy: the aristocracy, the bourgeoisie, the rich, those that would exploit workers, period. One enemy. With only one enemy, Marxism in 70 years killed likely over 100 million human beings, killed millions, tens of millions, probably over 100 million human beings with one enemy. Wokeism brings the same dynamic of conflict, of hatred, of vengeance, of violence into every place in life. Race, which is all around us all the time, even inside of our family. Gender, again, around us all the time, even inside of our family. It has undermined truth and meaning so that you can't even, like everybody remembers what a woman is. You can't even say what a woman is. So it's impossible to have the foundations of a collaborative society. The corrosion and depth of woke, of what's called ubiquity, meaning it's everywhere. It's everywhere all the time. That is, it's Marxism on steroids. I'll have to teach that more clearly in the future, but you can see very simply or quickly how much, unless this is stopped, what we're facing. And we're in good, we're doing good legislatively, but the reason why Jack and I and all the settlement people work so hard at this is because we must ultimately transform the culture. Otherwise, the war goes on eternally between the two. Woke ideology removes meaning, preempts truth, forbids speech, forbids opinion, and enslaves the members of society in order to enforce an impossible pursuit of quote unquote equality to a way that's 1,000 times more sick than what Marxism did. They're just trying to protect workers. Wokeism is trying to protect just the most disgusting degeneration of human beings and demanding equality on every front in this way. And it's ways to eliminate offenders. Since it hasn't gained power, it does it in many other ways. But if it gains power, its danger is far in excess of what. There are already woke ideologues speaking at the World Economic Forum talking about that 2 billion is a far better number of population on Earth. There's 6 billion people kind of waiting to see why they're not necessary. So it's a serious matter. The counterproposal, and again, this has to be done with a little more than I have time for, but intensify faith, unite across faiths, and expand the God-given rights, especially family love, family fidelity, family structure. That's the place where our individual sovereignty is nurtured and matured and guided and blossoms and becomes strong. We have to insist on our identity. And remember, our identity isn't that I'm a lesbian Eskimo. That my identity is I'm free, I'm equal, and I have God-given inalienable rights. These are the mission and work to overturn wokeism. Same mission with communism. Wokeism and communism, they're different from each other. They're not true allies, but they collaborate to destroy America and free societies because they're in the way. So China, for example, is very supportive of these types of behavior that you will never see in China in a million years. You'll never see riots on the street in China. They'll disappear. Those people will disappear. You'll never see big, huge transgender movements or gay movements or like transgender half men, half women, drag queen hours for the children of China. It's inconsistent with Chinese Marxism. But because it's an effective force to undermine the main obstacle in the way of the Chinese agenda, they support wokeism in major ways. And so these are the types of things that activists, patriots, and people who love their family and their freedoms need to be clear about these kind of relationships. There's 4 areas, at least, where you might feel called. On the spiritual side, because our identity comes from God, our rights come from God, our freedom, our equality, they come from God. The faiths and faith coalitions, they are the guardians of our identity. So there is a spiritual rejuvenation and renewal that is necessary to protect our country and free people and to liberate people under communist rule, like to liberate the people of China, the tremendous people of China. The next step out is cultural, family, morality, education, the culture in which we live. What's media like? What's entertainment like? What's a school outing like? Who are the guests coming in to speak to the cute little children? This is cultural. Other groups are political, getting out the vote, civic engagement. I think CFER is very effective politically, if I'm not mistaken. I know Sega, whom I know from CFER, is a hugely politically activist. We saved ourselves at the last election by people who were political geniuses, like Charlie Kirk, who activated unknown little segments of voting population. Economic, there's a lot of thinkers in the free market and things like that. The Settlement Project is primarily a voice in the spiritual realm and in the cultural realm. And we have a lot of education in those arenas, but we ally and work with and contribute to the whole picture. It's necessary. Without political victory, we're dead. You're dead, basically. You're dead. Your country's gone. And economic freedom and so forth. So these are the mission. This is the work. There you have it. That's me. I hope my timing was good. I don't know, but thanks a lot for the time, and you're welcome for us to offer these thoughts. Thank you very much.
I would say bravo. You got it on time.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaufmann. That was illuminating. And, I've always made this argument that in spite of the political victories we've seen since last November, we can't fight culture with government alone. We need to fight culture with culture.
Amen. Thank you. That's right. I agree.
In
Perfectly
this
said,
regard,
Doctor.
in this regard, the work that you and the settlement project do is so important, and we're just very grateful for your organization and to you and Jack for coming today to speak with us. I will kickstart our question and answer session with just a few quick questions to you, Dr. Kaufmann. Uh, why should young Americans be concerned about communism if it's just something of the past, if it has already supposedly fallen since the fall of the Berlin Wall? So why should they study it? Why should they understand it?
Thank you. That's a great question. I believe that the phrase or belief that communism has fallen, and with the fall of the Berlin Wall, would be called what would be called Western parochialism or Western centrism. It doesn't understand the whole world. Basically, what fell was the Soviet Union and its satellite forces, most especially Germany, East Germany. There was a joke back in the day that it only the Germans could almost make communism work. But it's kind of true. The fall of the Berlin Wall was very significant because like I said, Germans can almost make anything work. They're just efficient, intelligent, good workers. And so this was a significant dimension, the fall of the Berlin Wall, as well as the perestroika and the fall of the Soviet Union as well. But the huge part of the problems we face today is that America went to sleep at that point because of its Western centrism, and basically gave communist China the rope to hang ourselves. Communism hasn't fallen, it hasn't gone away. It's not a thing of the past. As I put in one of my slides, it's an overt and express political and cultural posture of the leader of communist China, who says we are Marxist, we are communists. And if you have a force as sophisticated and powerful as China, if you don't know what's driving it, you're just a sitting duck. You might as well be a tin can in the backyard shooting range. You're just gone sooner or later. So to respond, Doctor, it's wrong, or it's kind of parochial. It's not taking the whole world into account to believe that communism is a thing of the past. Until that's abandoned as a defining social concept for the Chinese leadership, it's far from finished.
Thank you for that. I have another question just to tag on to this initial question. As the guru of leftist grassroots organizing, Saul Alinsky, who you quoted in your booklet, once wrote, "The true revolutionaries do not flaunt their radicalism. They cut their hair, put on suits, and infiltrate the system from within." Do you think that this quote explains part of the reason why wokeism as a derivative of communism has been so successful in the West today?
Yes, absolutely. It inherited the genius of the Frankfurt School thinkers, and what was called cultural Marxism was called the long march through the institutions. That was basically the manifestation of the Alinsky insight. And basically they captured all of our institutions. The fact it's if you're a person of faith, you could say it's almost only the hand of God that we found a way to speak and reveal the truth. It was almost magic that social media platforms, especially X, made it possible. Otherwise, they controlled everything, not just armies, but what anyone ever heard was to be the case. So you're absolutely right on that as well, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Kaufmann. Do we have other questions from the audience? I did see earlier that David raised your hand. Would you like to ask a question, David?
Yes, I think it has been clear now, Dr. Kaufmann. You mentioned about cultural Marxism in probably in academic term, we call that critical theory, which have been pushed into, sadly, American higher institution in universities from early on, 60s and 70s, had been sleep in academic until now. The last five, well, actually started with the Obama administration. It just began to spill out to the society and steroid charged by George Floyd's event. But it's so sadly, I see that majority of Americans, especially American youth, don't understand, as they've been so educated to think that way. Do you think, what do you think it would be the remedy to reverse the process? Is there any way we can, you guys, or we can educate the young people now that we have a little bit more freedom to talk about it under Trump?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'll call you David. It's the only name I see. First name, sorry about that. But yeah, it's I think that just by evidence of everybody being here on the call, there are people that know that you can't, as Dr. Wu said, perfectly. You can what was it? You can't change culture by politics. You have to change culture by culture. And so I think that everybody who were a part of the victorious effort of establishing the political ascendancy of common sense and American ideals, that we have to be more desperate than ever. We have to be invested in every imaginable means and avenue and institution and design by which we can get the word out. I think for young people, it has to be done in exciting and in interesting ways. I just think we need all hands at the wheel, because if this swings back one more time, I don't know if we'll get out of it. We barely survived last time. If we don't really capture and nail down the culture to replace critical theory and wokeism, if you want to get really academic, it's postmodern critical theory, which has even more disease in it than the Frankfurt School and cultural Marxists. So I just think we have to be everywhere that we possibly can, using every means and tool and available instrument that we can to keep people involved and to help people recognize that there's still a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Mingji, you are on mute.
Sorry about that. This is Mingyi Baojin. Thank you, Dr. Kaufmann, for your talk. And I have lots of questions, but I'll start from the first one. And so we know America is the constitutional republic, but we also know that the left, basically the Democrats, use democracy a lot to describe how they want to rule the country. They want to be democratic. So I just wondering if the definition of democracy has hijacked by the left, or it's never been understood correctly. But then also, I have also heard the communists say that actually democracy is the road before communism, meaning that the majority will rule the minority So can you elaborate on that? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question and a relative, somewhat of a difficult one. I believe that the use of the word democracy by the left does not reflect a genuine commitment to democracy as a concept. I'm hearing it as a scare tactic. I hear it as the twisting of language, the perversion of language, the exploitation of language, that it's the one thing Americans feel that they need to preserve and protect. And so the Democrats just paint themselves with whatever's convenient to try to sound like they're representing the interests of the nation. So I don't think it's a misunderstanding of democracy. They've constantly openly speak and legislate against the necessary foundations and structures for American democracy. They want to either remove the Supreme Court or pack the Supreme Court. They want to remove the Electoral College. There's nothing. They want to remove the First Amendment. You constantly hear Democrats talking about the harmful quality of the First Amendment, the first right Americans have. So there's nothing evident in the legislative and cultural behavior of Democrats describing themselves as worried about the maintenance of democracy. I believe it's just simply using what Americans believe it's important without knowing much about why. I don't know if I've answered all of your questions, but
Well, yeah. But from my understanding, our Constitution doesn't talk about democracy. So if the definition of a democracy is the majority to rule minorities, that's what our founding fathers try to avoid, because we're a
correct.
constitutional republic.
Correct.
So I just wonder that the word democracy, what is your definition then?
Well, I would say that it's probably possible to design a number of different political systems by which power can be organized and maintained and transferred in quote unquote democratic ways. America did it the way we do it, with a constitutional republic. It's certainly not a majority rule democracy. That's called mob rule. We're not in favor of that, and the founders knew better than that. This is why at the outset of my very outset of my talk, I didn't concentrate on our political system. I concentrated on how the founders defined the human being, and then the structures of government can be designed, I think, in a number of ways, with a number of names, so long as they are tested to see whether or not they protect that which is inviolable.
Okay. Am I allowed to ask another question?
Let's go over two more questions, Mingyi, and then if we have time, we'll circle back with your.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Thank you, Mingyi.
Thank you.
Paulo, did I say your name right?
Yes, Paolo is correct.
Paulo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I strongly feel that the solution to communism and wokeism really has to be a religious one. We need to get all these religions right with the truth and with God. I feel like the reason that wokeism is so dangerous is because it's the best ideology to weaponize resentment. Resentment is a very common feeling for all human beings. Is basically comes from lack of love or perceived lack of love. So each one of us has infinite reasons to be resentful because we didn't get enough love from our parents, from our friends, from society, from God himself, because we are separated from God. So the only answer is really has to be through religion, because we need to get our understanding of God and our relationship with God, we need to get it right, because no religion is really able to solve this problem. For example, sometimes I feel that God himself is asking us for forgiveness. Now, this sounds like blasphemy, I understand. However, can we forgive God? Can we overcome our resentment? Only if we can do that, then wokeism will just disappear, because
Paulo, remember there's folks also. Is the question, I'd like to respond to that if I may. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is that all right?
no, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
The issue of getting religion right and getting right with God has been a contentious one over the course of human history. And so what is needed is for a horizon in which people who hold their religious views absolutely, like perhaps you or others on the call might, have to find a way to be fully affirmative of the spirituality and faith commitments of our colleagues. We need to have allies before we have subtle differences. So I think you're absolutely correct. And I think that a true movement that is able to hold back, just as you described, the fanning of resentment that wokeism is so exquisite at doing. I hope that my Confucian friends have a way that's out of this world to do it. I hope that my Baptist friend have a way that's out of this world. If you can get close, I'm not going to argue with you about whether you're close to God or if your religion is right or not. I think joining arms now is the way. And then getting closer and closer, feeding each other ways in which I want to learn. Oh, that's how you do it. I never thought of that. Can I use that? Yeah, but you're a Baptist. Yeah, but I like to use that. If my Confucian friend says, yeah, I use it. It works for me. So like that. So you're right. But it's a very subtle and challenging path, but we can do it. You're dead on, Paulo.
Thank you both. Larry?
Thank you very much. Frank, that was an amazingly clear presentation. And I'm in Washington, D.C., and my whole orientation is toward the politically practical. And I believe we did dodge a bullet. We dodged a bullet. The younger generation was headlong over Kamala Harris, even though she never gave a straight answer and spoke gibberish and evaded even softball questions. But my worry is that Trump and Elon, they're two peas in a pod. Both are bulls in a china shop. Both are reckless in what they say and how they do, and they alienate as much as they attract. In their, I mean, there's a million ways to talk to Canada about being a 51st state that might make Canada feel flattered and not alienated. I remember in his first term, Trump alienated Mexico on his very first day. But I like the fact that what they are doing is showing that the Social Security system isn't bankrupt, but it's just simply being stolen. And boy, the thievery has been absolutely unabated, and the people who have benefited from it are going berserkers out there. So I see that there's a lot that's going, but because America's political base and political thinking is so shallow and so temporal. The young have not studied history. They don't know about Marxism's history. They don't know about the Nazis. They think anybody that raises his hand up is a Nazi. So, I mean, it's crazy. So he could easily go down in the midterm or lose the House in the midterm. And in some cases, maybe even the Senate. That's harder to do. But and then 4 years later, you've got somebody else that could come in and could be more charismatic, have better hair gel or whatever, and take the election. Trump spent the first 3 weeks signing things to
Larry, if there's other people, sorry to be.
Okay. Anyway, my question, the thing I would like you to address is what can we do as a stopgap? Because I live in fear that a few turns of the phrase and he will alienate people, and this great blessing we have will be gone. It was a fragile win, and its hold is tenuous. So that's it, and I apologize for the long-winded.
No. You're always fun to listen to for me. You're dead on. You're dead right. It's a quivering fear that we all have, and the alienation of people is real. I'm sure. Those are the political questions, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with them. It's not only that those two people have what some people feel is abrasive personalities, but it's also that we, for 30 years, we were asleep. The young people their capacities for critical thinking, for knowledge, for good education, as you mentioned, the good knowledge of history, it's absent. And so all you have are people who are highly intelligent and easily exploited over emotions and sentiments and things like that. So that's the longer range thing, is start to recover, find out how to re-educate young people who are able to think. But in the next 18 months, and to protect the House, this is the print ink of, it's the print ink of political media. I don't quite know. Yeah. I don't know what to say. You raise a good and scary point.
Thank you very much, especially about critical thinking and regaining the ability to have discussions.
Yeah, thank you, Larry.
Thank you, everyone. I see more hands raised. I'd like to continue the conversation, but we are running over time a little bit. May I suggest that Dr. Kaufmann and Mr. Ashworth share your contact information in the chat, so you can be reached if there are additional questions or just feedback about the presentation.
Okay, happy to do that. Will there be a moment to just say a quick word of thanks, or are we just gonna tell me when's a good moment? I just want to make sure about that.
Yes, please feel free to say your.
All right. I just want to say. Okay, I put in there's my. I just want to say that you're great, Dr. Wu. Really, you ran this beautifully, and like endless prayers for the success of your work and for CFER. And I hope we can do a lot together. Thanks to Jack and his great work building relationship with you guys. And I'd like to thank everyone from CFER and from Settlement Friends for their contributions as well. I hope I was helpful. We all struggle together to try to protect what's sacred for us.
Thank you, Dr.
Also, just if they contact Frank and leave information, I will send one of the WICC Ideology Critique and Counterproposals book to them. So just contact him and I'll get your information and send it out.
Oh,
Yeah,
and I'm just going to put the URL of settlement in the, so you can be in touch with us there too.
thank you.
So
both.
yeah, that's our URL. And
I read the book last weekend, and I'd say that it's a tremendous work. I recommend it, highly recommend it. I was trained in political science, but even for me, it's very educational and refreshing. I highly recommend it. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kaufmann. Thank you, Mr. Jack Ashworth, for joining us and speak with us on this important topic. I will share the video link once it's posted on our YouTube channel. And I look forward to continuing to collaborate with the settlement project. And thank you everyone in the audience for joining us this morning.